Welcome to the Apple Pie Club. We're here to take you on a thrilling journey through the realms of practical philosophy and spirituality. I'm Tanya, your practical philosopher, and I'm joined by Sky, your spiritual guide. And our aim is to offer you a holistic perspective on life, blending insights from diverse philosophies and spiritual practices. From personal growth to timeless wisdom, we'll cover it all. So, whether you're a seasoned seeker or just starting your journey, join us on this adventure. The Apple Pie Club is open to all, and we can't wait to have you along for the ride. So grab a slice of apple pie and let's dive into the world of ideas together. And Sky, I am going to hand over to you.
Okay, thank you. Something a little bit different. It's not really just a particular quote by Plato. It's looking at his work called The Republic. And the story, well, this is the allegory of the cave. And this appears in book 7, sorry. So I love this. I really, really love this. And so what we're going to do is we're going to unpack it a little bit. And in the allegory of the cave, you can just imagine a group of people who've been chained inside a dark cave since their birth. They are in a fixed place, unable to move, unable even to move their heads, and they can only see this wall in front of them. And behind them, which actually in the allegory of the cave, they're called the prisoners. Behind the prisoners, there's this fire. And between the fire and the prisoners, there's a parapet along with puppeteers. And these puppeteers are casting shadows on the wall of this cave. And they're holding up various objects in front of the fire. And all the prisoners are able to see are the shadows of these objects that are being cast on the wall, not the objects themselves. In fact, the shadows are the only things that they know. And one day, one of the prisoners is freed from his chains and is forced to turn around and see the fire. And initially, the light of the fire pains his eyes and he's blinded. But as he becomes accustomed to the light, he realizes that the shadows on the wall were not and are not reality, but mere reflections of the real objects. So this freed prisoner is then dragged up and out of the cave and into the outside world. And as he ascends, he's initially blinded again by the sunlight. But he gradually begins to see again. Once again, his eyes adjust to this new light, to this new world around him more clearly. And he can see these real objects and these real people, and eventually the sun, which is the source of all light and life. So this enlightened prisoner then, now understanding the truth about nature and the reality of life, he feels compelled to return to the cave and to free the others. And upon returning, however, his eyes are blinded again by the darkness this time. And the other prisoners are still chained and accustomed to their shadows. And they think that his journey has harmed him and resist his attempts to free them. And I'm really fascinated by this because in our previous podcast, we actually spoke a little bit about Martin Luther and how he saw the light about something and he wrote a thesis about it. He nailed his thesis to the door, thinking that he would return because he was now enlightened about something. He would set everybody free, and they also did not want to be set free. And so there's this wonderful phrase, are so blind as those who do not wish to see. But I just love this story, this allegory. Socrates has been known to retell the story on many, many occasions. And so sometimes there's actually this discussion, who actually told it? Was it Plato or Socrates? But I think today, Tanya, let's unpack this whole beautiful allegory of the cave and what that means to us and to modern day life.
Beautiful. So I thought I'd start off because Plato did put forth that reaching the highest state of understanding, that we really need grasp the essence of all things, that we can get to reason, and we do that through philosophical contemplation. So therefore, getting to the light out of the cave is where we gain the knowledge of all forms and understanding of true nature and reality. So I thought I'd start with that. But when we decided to do that, I picked up the Republic, and I was delighted to see the image of the cave. So it was obviously 20 years ago, something that we studied quite heavily. So to start with, I want to look at the fire inside the cave and how it represents possibly a false source of light and truth, like an illusion. So if we look at the fire, and as you were saying, it was casting shadows on the wall, and that's what the prisoners can see. But if we look at the prisoners as human beings, like all of us, the shadows can be images of our own perception and our reality, but it's not true. So when we look at it in terms of human beings, we look at it in terms of, well, what we think is true in our ideas and our perceptions, is it really true? Right? Are we closed off to other people's opinions? Are we closed off to a higher being and a higher self? You know, whatever we call that, whether we call that God or the light, or are we closed off to that by not opening our own mindset and being stuck in the shadows? Yeah. So
Yes, yeah.
Oh, go on.
No, I was gonna say, I think that's all those prisoners could see, because they were fixed. I love the fact that it says they were chained so that they couldn't move their heads. So actually their entire mindset was fixed. And we talk about that with neuroplasticity and our neural pathways. And I talk about that in my journey that I had to go through, is to change those neural pathways, because mine were fixed. They're fixed from childbirth. They're fixed. The way we perceive the world is our environment, the way our parents raised us, the morals, the values we were taught, what we believed in. We thought that was truth. We thought that was reality. But actually, and all of our limitations, our limitations, limiting beliefs about ourselves, we think that's truth. We think that's who we are, until we are brave enough to face, to be freed, as indicated, we have a choice. So they released one prisoner, but then when he came back to release the others didn't want to go. So we have a choice to decide to take this road, to be free from our perceptions of what we perceive life to be.
And that's the same happened with me before I started studying philosophy. I was wrapped up in a world of interpreting people and situations in not the best possible way I could, and therefore reacting to people in a negative way. And it wasn't until, for my light, it was going in and studying philosophy. So when you look at being dragged out of the cave towards the sunlight, initially, because we're being challenged in our thought process and we're challenged in what we believe the norm is, it can be confronting, overwhelming.
Yeah, I love the fact that there were two lights. That first of all, the fire that cast the shadow, and it talks about this initial period of pain and confusion because of this exposure that they had to the light. And isn't that what we go through when we've believed a certain way for so many years of our life, and we start to explore, and we think, no, that doesn't really make sense to me anymore. And as you say, this period of pain and real confusion. And I know for me, initially, my first stepping out and direct exposure to the light was a sense of, oh my goodness, I don't belong here anymore. And so if I don't belong here, then where do I belong? I didn't belong back with everybody who was looking at the shadows, chained up looking at the shadows. And I didn't really feel like I belonged in this new environment, and it was really a confusing time as to where do I belong as we begin to take this journey of actually seeing reality and seeing the light.
Yeah, because you're almost like when the prisoner was taken out and he started looking around and initially not looking up to the bright sun because it was too much. He was looking around, looking at different forms of nature, trees, the pond, looked at his reflection initially in the water, and over time it became more and more comfortable. And the more you practice a different way of thinking and being, which is more in the light than in the dark, more true than what we may currently be thinking, stuck in our ego or our identity. The more you do that, the more comfortable it becomes. So you would have eventually, like I did, eventually settle into that new life, and you were no longer lost. But it had to become normal for you. Yeah, your
Absolutely.
new norm.
Your new normal, exactly, because as we've said, this is those prisoners have been in that cave. That's all they knew. That's all. They didn't even question, are these shadows real? They didn't even question their life. It was only when one prisoner was released and he began to see, okay, these are not even, I love the idea of puppeteers. So apart from the fact of real objects looking distorted because of the fire and you're only seeing the shadows, there are actually puppeteers, other people pulling our strings or pulling the strings of other things, wanting us to see certain things in a certain way. And that is exactly the same as back to Martin Luther again and his thesis is, certain people in a leadership, in an organization, they wanted people to believe certain things because that was their wealth, that was their source of their wealth and their power. They did not want that taken away from them. And so I love, what this allegory says, that the goal of education is to drag every man as far out of the cave as possible. You can see that as each step, they're going a little bit further out of the cave and seeing things a little bit more clearly with a little bit more reality until they eventually get to the source and they get to the sun and they realize that this is my true desire, this is who I truly am. And that's what I always say, is that's what I went on that journey to identify who I truly am. And even when I discovered, okay, so now I have the knowledge, I'm a spirit being of pure love and pure light. And I've come to spend some time on this planet, okay, inhabit this earth suit, as I call it. This is my earth suit. So just like when, human bodies have to go to the moon or space, they have to put on a space suit so that their bodies have those conditions, are able to live in those conditions up in another environment. Well, this for my spirit to be able to live on planet Earth, it needs an earth suit. Okay, so this is my earth suit for as long as I'm here. And I know we can get into this whole journey that I had to take was, okay, well, now how do my earth suit and my spirit go together? How do they communicate with each other? And how do I live with this understanding that I'm a spirit being and a human being? And so that's, I think for me, that's been probably the last part of the journey, was the hardest part of the journey, really. And so, and yet now that I'm there, I think, I don't know, should it have been so hard? But when you've been, I once did this training and it was called Step Out of the Shadows. And really, I think for me, that's the purpose of doing this podcast today, is to encourage us all to step out of the shadows, not only in who we might be believing that we are, or perceiving that we are capable, what we're perceiving that we're capable of, but challenging our perceptions of what I always talk about the Course in Miracles, and the first half of it's a year-long program, 365 days. The first half is challenging our perceptions down to the simplest things. It starts off by saying, look at this lamp and say, that lamp has no meaning. And you feel so silly doing it the first few weeks. And you say, this book has no meaning, until you realize what she's trying to do. The writer of this course, she's trying to say that I bring the meaning to everything I see. So in and of itself, that lamp has no meaning. I bring meaning to it. And that's what's happening here in the allegory of the cave. Everything that they are seeing, they are bringing their own meaning and their own perception to.
But what's interesting as well is when he returns to the cave and he's a bit disorientated because he's not used to the dark, and they think that something's happened to him. And then he starts sharing with the other prisoners about the other life, the new light. And they're skeptical and they don't believe him. And it made me think, does enlightenment only come from experience? And that's why they couldn't comprehend, they couldn't understand, because they hadn't experienced it themselves.
I think you have to have an experience, because you can be told, and as we're talking about the purpose of education, but actually you have to have that experience, because there's this wonderful saying. I first heard it by Tony Robbins. I don't know if he's the one who actually coined the phrase, but it was they say that knowledge is power, but actually it's applied knowledge. Because knowledge in and of itself has no power. It's only when you start to apply the knowledge. So education in and of itself does not have that ability to change. It's only when we apply what we're learning. And only when we apply what we're learning is when we begin to have an experience. And that's why I always said, when I left the religion that I had been ingrained in and involved in for so long, I never left God. Because in that religion, totally, I had the most incredible experiences of God, but I could not relate any longer to some of the teachings, or many of the teachings, actually. And even when I did my theology degree, I realized that many of the teachings were not even correct, were not even valid anymore. And so, yeah, I think this is part of the story, is this one prisoner that's actually, he escapes. He has this amazing experience. He has the experience of his eyes not hurting, of the pain. And that's the other important thing. You have to feel emotion. So it's in our feeling. They always say with visualization, it doesn't help that you just picture it. You have to feel it. If you want something for the future, and your manifestation, co-creation, and creating a quantum manifestation, it's all about picturing something and visualizing something, but also feeling it, feeling the emotion. And I think I love this about that comes into the story, is that he feels the pain of being blinded by the light, because it is painful. It's painful when the people who you have been involved in for so long now ostracize you, and you just don't belong there anymore. It's painful personally when you don't find your space. You're not sure what space you're supposed to be in. It's also painful, very, very painful, to realize who you were and who you need to be. But I also love the idea of the fire. The fire is because the fire is what actually burns away the dross, heats things up, so that the dross the top. And when they're refining gold, or if the dirt comes to the top, and they actually have to skim that off to get the pure gold underneath. And so sometimes we need to be refined by fire as well, and that's painful to become, I guess, use that word, enlightened.
What's also interesting is when you're changing and we're growing as individuals, sometimes people who were close friends or family, they don't like it. And that's another reason why you can feel you don't know where you fit. And another thing which came to mind as you were talking So when the prisoner came back down the cave, that's what the prisoner experienced. They didn't believe him. They thought he was crazy. He didn't fit anymore.
That's right.
So even if as you're going through your own transition, be mindful like that you will have to go back down that cave and have conversations with people who still might be in the cave.
Well, I don't know. I mean, let's do the old modern day philosopher here, or old day philosopher, and have a discussion. Do you have to go back? I actually heard this the other day, um, and somebody said, as this allegory of caves purely says, when he went back, they didn't want to go. And so it's not our responsibility to go back and try to free everybody. And
I, I guess it depends on what you're going back for. Because quite often you're going back because you're married to somebody or it's
that's
your
a bit
child,
different.
so you've got no choice but to go back. if if you're going back to people who don't matter so much, you've moved on, then no. But in a lot of instances, you have to, whether you stay there or not, whether you can drag them out. Now, if you go back with all your enlightened knowledge, and some people just go, oh, sorry, don't believe anything you're saying. Some people just naturally like to be miserable. And there's nothing you can do about it. You're not there to save them. But then it comes to a decision on what you're going to do about it.
Yeah, the cave represents really our beliefs. That's what it is. Looking at the shadows and not wanting to look anywhere else. And in the end, we know this. We now know this phrase. When you change what, I don't know if I can remember it exactly, but something like when you change how you see the world, that's it. When you change how you see the world changes. Yeah, and I heard this. Yeah, I love this other phrase that I heard the other day, which is stop looking for love in the same place you lost it. And sometimes, so really, what is our motivation for going back down, into the cave? Are we hoping that we'll be validated? We're hoping they'll believe us. We're hoping they'll say, okay, yeah, you've got it all right. Or does it actually not matter? Because really, that is the Christian philosophy. Initially, that was Jesus's philosophy. And so let's not say the Christian philosophy, because Jesus was not a Christian, he was a Jew. And he never intended to start a Christian church.
Yeah.
He came to set people free from the religion of the day. And the people that went with him started a movement, which is fair, but they started another religion. And so, yeah, at the end, when the whole idea was there's this phrase that you'll know them by their fruit. And so that's often interpreted as, oh, they'll know if they're Christian by the fruit they have. No, you'll know if you're a follower of the divine, the one, an enlightened being, by your fruit. Do you operate in love and joy and peace? Or many people who are in religions do not.
100%.
Yeah.
And that's what happened with my relationship with my father when he came over and he said, why have you changed? What's going on with you? I wasn't reacting to him anymore. I wasn't arguing. He wasn't pushing my buttons. And so I went back down to my cave for him, not in my own mind. I stayed enlightened. And I pulled him out and he came with me and he started studying philosophy. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's I guess another thing that I wanted to share is this one prisoner. Okay, I know it says he was dragged out, but he must have had some kind of desire to be free.
For a readiness to be.
A readiness,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, a readiness that perhaps turned into desire, became desire. Yeah, so, and I think that's the key, is you can't drag people out if they're not ready. You can't, they have to be ready at least to even have a discussion, have a discussion that changes neural pathways, etc. But I heard this wonderful statement the other day as well, and it said, discontentment is a precursor for expansion and evolution. I love that. We think, oh, I'm discontent and it's frustrating. And again, it's uncomfortable and painful. And we think there's something wrong. We think we've done something wrong, because why should we be feeling discontent? I have to talk. I had a great job. Why was I feeling so discontent? Why was I feeling there was something so horribly wrong? And anybody would have looked at me and said, wow, you work for that institution? You earn that much money. The money I was earning was, I heard the other day, and that's when I started thinking, oh my God, what did I do? With the top 10% of people living in Australia, but I was so discontent there. And I've just realized that by hearing that statement, actually, I needed to expand. My soul was calling for evolution, for going to looking at the next fire, looking at the next light. And yes, it's painful. Oh my goodness, is it painful when you have to actually change a whole lot of things in your life and you're not sure if you've made the right decisions, but you just keep going with it. And I think that fits so well into this allegory of the cave, that if you're feeling discontentment, it's a sign of that readiness. It's a sign of that you're ready to expand, you're ready to evolve, and look at the light. Take the journey. It's so well worth it.
100%. And if you're listening to the Apple Pie Club, then you either are on your journey or you're ready.
Totally.
Before we move on to our tips, I also liked how you referred to the strings on the puppets and how it's can look back, and certain people are trying to control us, trying to control our behavior. And that very much goes back to Plato, who said that real leaders should be philosopher kings. They're enlightened. They think with reasons. Their minds are sound and search for truth. And we look at the current situation with politics at the moment. It's quite interesting when you think about philosophy as opposed to what drives a lot of people now and how they're pulling the strings.
Certainly. And so the key is, which I'll do with my tip. So I'll end with my tip. And really, at the end of the day, we are 100% responsible for our own lives. We don't answer for anybody who stays in the cave. We don't answer for anybody else and anybody else's decisions, but we do answer for ours. And my tip would be to take 100% responsibility for your own growth, your own learning, your own life, your own spiritual journey. Because yes, you're going to encounter some painful times, but my phrase, step out of the shadows, be brave and be courageous, actually see things as they are. The allegory of the cave talks about the trees and the flowers and horses and the people, to see things as they truly are. And often that means we have to go inside of ourselves and see ourselves as we truly are. So there's no shame and there's no guilt and there's no blame. There's just simply an awareness of, I don't want to be that anymore. I'm going to make some changes and create some new habits, perhaps, in my life, to be someone else, to be more loving, to be more kind, to be more forgiving, to be more grateful, whatever it is for you. So have the courage to step out of the shadows. Step out of the shadows. I know in the last episode we spoke about stepping out of the shadows as in owning your light and shining your light. And so this is a step out of the shadows in a slightly different way. Step out of the shadows, because when you start shining your light, you'll encounter a whole lot of other things as well. But be brave and courageous to step out of the shadows.
Beautiful. Yeah. Okay, so my tip for the week is get more comfortable with getting out of your comfort zone and to contemplate any shadows on the wall or your cave in your life that are limiting or false in information. They're not true. And the fact that we have 80 to 90,000 words that we tell ourselves in our head each day is to really check in and say, is the story or the narrative that you're telling yourself about your life, is it really true or is it false? Especially if it's not working for you, especially if you feel that calling that I don't want to do this anymore. So contemplate any long held beliefs that you've had, or any social norms or assumptions that you've ended up taking on board because somebody else has been pulling your strings and it's just not factual. And then make the effort to acknowledge that information and to expand your knowledge by reading books, listening to audiobooks or podcasts on how you can actually step out of that shadow and become a better version of you by standing into the light. So that's my tip.
Great. Because, as I said in a Facebook post recently, is that, our journey is all about becoming the best version of ourselves. And as we mentioned, it's going to be a lifelong journey because we want to become better versions of ourselves right to the end. I'm sure everyone has that. But I heard this little story years ago, probably 30 years ago by now, and I was thinking about it as you were talking. There was a daughter, his mum is cooking a roast, and she cuts the end of the roast off before she puts it in the roasting pan. And the daughter comes along and says, Mum, why do you cut the end of the roast off before you put it in the pan? She said, I don't know. My mum did that. Let's go and talk to your grandma. So the grandma happened to be close by, obviously. They go and talk to the grandma and said, why did you cut the end of the roast off before you put it in the pan? She said, I don't know. That's what my mum did. Let's go and talk to your grandma and your great grandma. She said, so off they go, talk to great grandma. And said, why did you cut the end of the roast off before you put it in the pan? She said, oh, that's because I never had a big enough pan. And this is really what happens, by immersion. We learn these things.
Yeah.
We do things because our ancestors did them, our parents and our grandparents did them. And as Ray Behan says on Think and Grow Education, we have all these old people living in our head in our aged care center, telling us how to live, telling us what to do, because we learned by immersion. And so as we just be willing to challenge some of the things that you do.
I'd done that yesterday. I was cooking Sunday lunch and some friends came over and I dropped the knife, and one of my friends is standing next to me. I picked the knife up and I turned around 3 times and she looked at me. I said, oh, don't worry, it's my mother. One of her superstitions. I used to say, stop telling me your superstitions. I don't want to know what they are. So if I dropped a knife, I had to turn around 3 times to get somebody stabbing me in the back. Anyway, okay, should we do the meditation? So this meditation is called Stepping Out of Your Comfort Zone. So for those of you who are leaving us, thank you for joining us. We hope you enjoyed this session. We certainly did. And don't forget to subscribe, follow, or share. And we look forward to talking to you again next week. Here we go with the meditation, stepping out of our comfort zone. So when you're ready, begin by finding a quiet and comfortable place to sit, or if you want to lie down, then lie down now. And close your eyes and take a deep breath in, filling your lungs with air. And hold for a moment, and then slowly exhale, releasing any tension in your body. And just repeat some deep breaths a few times as you relax more and more. And now imagine yourself in a dark cave. This cave represents your current state of being. your comfort zone. And the shadows on your wall are the beliefs, norms, and assumptions that you have accepted without question. Yet these shadows are the limitations that you have placed on yourself and the world around you. So I want you to take a moment to observe these shadows. What do they represent? Are they long-held beliefs that no longer serve you? Are they social norms that you have accepted without questioning? Are there assumptions about yourself and others that limit your potential? And as you contemplate these shadows, acknowledge their presence and understand they are not the full truth. They are merely projections of your past experiences, fears, and conditioning. They are not who you truly are. And now visualize a small light appearing in the cave. This light represents your curiosity, your desire to seek knowledge, and your willingness to step out of your comfort zone. And as the light grows brighter, it begins to illuminate the cave, revealing the true nature of the shadows. And they start to fade away. And now you can see the cave for what it truly is. And with each breath, feeling the light growing stronger within you. This light is your inner wisdom, guiding you to question the shadows and seek the truth beyond them. Embrace this light and let it fill your entire being. And affirm to yourself, I am open to questioning the shadows of my beliefs. I seek knowledge and understanding beyond my limited perception. I am committed to my growth and enlightenment. And as you continue to breathe deeply, imagine yourself stepping out of the cave. You are now in a vast open space filled with light and possibilities. This is the world beyond your comfort zone, where true growth and enlightenment awaits. Feel the freedom and empowerment that comes with this new perspective. Know that you have the courage to question, to learn, and to grow. And keep this feeling with you as you slowly bring your awareness back to the present moment. And when you're ready, open your eyes, feeling refreshed and ready to embrace the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead. And remember that true enlightenment comes from seeking knowledge and understanding beyond the shadows of our limited perception. So keep questioning, keep learning, and keep growing. Thank you. We are the Apple Pie Club.